Okay, ready? Is it now recording?
Are we on? We're on.
Welcome to the Peeps podcast.
Is it a podcast?
I know it's not. Welcome
It's
to
going
the
to be
Peeps.
a series of video cast films.
Yeah, exactly. Made in a podcast studio,
Yeah.
but actually available to watch on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
I'm Daisy. Hey, I'm here with Richard Osley, who's our editor of the Camden Journal, the Islington Tribune, mastermind behind Peeps, mastermind behind our new Substack, which is called New Journal Plus. Anyway, I'm here with Richard today to talk about what he thinks about local journalism, how it's changed over the years that he's worked in it, which is 22 years. Is that correct, Richard?
22 years at the Camden New Journal, yeah.
Wow.
That's quite a long time.
That is quite a long time. What do you what do you think is the state of local journalism now?
Well, it's never been more challenging. That's the basic truth of it. We've got local papers closing down all over the country. Quality of ones that exist has clearly gone down. Obviously, we're doing our best to keep the flame alive in Camden and Islington. I think we've done really well with the papers that we've got. Recently won Paper of the Year at the Regional Press Awards, I should mention. But it's difficult. It's difficult. These, the different trends that we've seen with tech and the way people consume news. The future of local papers is up for debate, and that's what at the Camden Journal we're trying to do new things, looking for different audiences, different revenues, and here we are in the podcast studio. But you've got to look at it like this, really, that if you see local news as an important vital to public life. If you think that the local news isn't there's no journalists at all on the ground, then there's nothing challenging the people that are making decisions about your life, our lives, everyone's lives. Now that's not there. What is going to take its place? So I kind of see local news, and it might seem, local paper, Family Examiner type kind of little village newsletter. It's not like that. I see it more as a resource that you have to protect in the same way that, you need food and energy and water, everything like that, all your basics. But you also need access to clear, precise information. And that's what we try to do. Now, we're not just boring people on with this public information film here and there. Obviously, our job is to entertain sometimes, and people say, well, why is that in the paper? You've got a celebrity story in the paper. But it's not just that. We do a lot of challenging stuff. We kind of we're at council meetings, we're in the courts, we're in the inquests, and we're asking questions where when things go wrong, we're there to ask why.
How do you think our newspapers in Camden and Islington have managed to survive, or kind of survive and continue to thrive when the wider industry is struggling?
Well, it's not easy. It's not easy. We can't just say like, we're going to be here forever because we're different. But we are different. And when you go back to that kind of almost public utility type idea, if you go out there and say, well, I'm not going to make profit out of news. You can't make profit out of local news. It just should be something that is in our society, something that we need as people. Then don't try and make profit out of it. So what we do at the Camden New Journal, Islington Tribune, is just try to cover our costs. It's not to try and race the biggest amount of profit as possible. We've got no shareholders, no huge salaries, unfortunately. I'm sure we'd all like a pay rise, Daisy. This is your chance
No
on camera to ask for one.
Cannot confirm or deny.
But if you are trying to make as much profit as possible, then you're onto a loser, because that money isn't really there. But we do want local papers, or even all journalism, to exist. So let's just cover the costs.
You wouldn't necessarily, I've always got the Camden New Journal through my door growing up, but you don't necessarily know that that's happening when you kind of read it or flick through it or whatever you do with it, and it comes through every week. You don't know that how much work and energy is going into producing that, and how significant it is as well. I think people obviously know how significant it is, but not if you don't give it too much
But you get
thought,
different
so.
kind of readers, because you get the readers who like the fact we're here. They're not going to read every single word in the paper every week, but when they need us, like the problem, like a I know, development they don't like at the end of their road, and they want publicity and a campaign to build up around it, then they're glad we're here. Obviously I'd like them to read every single word, everything that we put out in the paper. That's pretty unrealistic. But I think we're appreciative of what we've done, because over the years we played like key roles in saving the accident emergency department when it was being closed down at the Whittington Hospital. We went mad on that. We had double-decker campaign bus leading 5,000 people up the Holloway Road. We were there, saved the local swimming pools from being sold off, all sorts of things like that. So, we're there when people need it. I'd like them to read it every week, but
You said earlier as well, when local news isn't there, what's going to take its place? I mean, do you think there's a risk? Is it that there's just nothing to take its place? Is there a risk of kind of, I don't know, everyone is segmented into their online communities or
I think that one of the risks is that we have quite a lot of local papers struggling on in a kind of ghost version of what they once were. And to fill those pages, they might have maybe just one reporter in a town or an area of London, and they're trying to do everything. They've been sent out on council meeting on a Monday, 3 meetings a week. You're supposed to live stream everything now from the scene, get to the police state when there's been a crime. They really ask a lot of some of these reporters. If you get rid of, half your staff, then it's going to be hard to put the paper out this week. Now, in that place, if you're a political party, for instance, you ring up that local paper that's got one person on it but got 30 pages to fill, and you say, I'd like to write an opinion piece. They probably won't even ask you what that's about. They'll say, okay, great, that's 600 words in the paper, great. And when that politician has seen their piece go out in that paper, they'll then tweet it and share it everywhere, which is great for that paper. But there's no questioning. It's not hard to get your kind of opinion into the paper. I mean, I think political parties should really go for it. If I was cynical about it, they could say, well, I can get every week, I can just fill local paper. They're desperate to fill pages. So I'll send my press release, or I'll send my, but if you've done a half decent press release, it doesn't have to be politics. You send it to a paper that's in that kind of ghost form, and they go, great, straight in.
So there's no challenging or questioning.
No challenging, but just like, so there's some papers where reporters are being asked to do 7 stories a day. What are those stories going to be like? A journal, our paper, you might not even do 1 story in a day if you're kind of doing the research or getting ready for something bigger, something more meaningful. But if you're doing like basically 1 story an hour, what you're going to do? You're going to reach for the press release, the perfectly written press release, and put it straight in. And that's great for if you're the person wanting to get publicity, and sometimes it's not even connected to the areas now because of these big groups. You've got people.
Can you just explain to people what that model looks like now? It's kind of large companies that own.
Yeah, it's about 3 or 4 companies that kind of are in control of most of the local press in the UK, and it's been like that for quite a long time. But they've got a certain profit margin that they still want to maintain, despite the downturn in the advertising market. So that market that you used to have in the the 80s, 90s, where people did use their local paper as the obvious source of advertising in print, that hasn't translated across into revenue online. So if you want to advertise online, probably you're going to say, well, I'll try and I'll take an ad on Facebook or Instagram, because that can target to a certain audience in a certain way, which is, we all know about algorithms and how things are served up to you. So what the bigger companies are now trying to do to kind of cross that gap is to go for volume on their website. So as long as we get enough eyes on the website, then we can get some quick advertising, and hopefully we can fill this gap that we've lost because people aren't advertising in print so far. But if you're going for volume and you're going to need clicks, well, we know where that ends up. We end up, if you're doing 7 stories a day, you've got to get as much clicks as possible. The best thing that you can do is to write about a traffic jam. Okay, might be helpful for people trying to get home. It'll be about the scariest version of a crime story as possible. There's police tape at the end of the road. Now, that might be something very serious, but it also could be something not that serious, but you can scare people into clicking by going, wow, the police tape at the end of your road, what's going on? We'll do a live blog on that. Or you go raiding through celebrities' Twitters and Instagram profiles and say, can you believe this EastEnders star is in the park today? And that can be, in itself, can be a story. Or you do the kind of search friendly, which we've probably all seen, what time is Match of the Day on tonight, or what time is Strictly, or they'll kind of do viral content based around what's going to be on TV at that time. So if they know there's going to be a big story in EastEnders on a Thursday, they'll put who is in EastEnders, who is Dirty Den. I don't know. I haven't watched EastEnders for years, but on that, and that's what we're left with in these websites. And I think the good thing is that there's been quite a good response to a kind of backlash almost towards those kind of websites, the ones that are kind of completely loaded with so many adverts that you can't really read what the article is anyway, even if you wanted to. You've seen kind of smaller models around the country just kind of peeping through different kind of independent titles.
It sounds like, as well as the downturn in print advertising, that it's this profit model that's kind of eviscerating all of these papers in a general sense. I mean, what is the alternative? Obviously, for us, we're kind of more like a co-op. Is that the model? Is that a kind of viable model for lots of places? Or
well, I guess I would, if you were doing 7 or 8 stories a day and you're frantically trying to get to everything and you're not being paid that much money, and then you look at your bosses who are doing pretty well on their executive salaries, or you're seeing the kind of profits that are still being made on an annual basis, and then kind of shareholders expecting a certain dividend, then maybe your hard work on the ground, you might be thinking, well, what am I doing this for? And that'd be a shame because, like I say, on these newspapers, there's great journalists with great ideas who just need the time to do the stuff they want to do. Which for most journalists is like, you've been to journalism school, you've had the idea of doing it. Probably, I'm guessing, isn't to beat some sort of viral worm chart by saying what time Match of the Day is on. But some people would love doing it, and some people see it as a game. The hits game. Got loads of clicks on that. But probably some of the more important stuff, let me say what I think is important, and probably, people in the council and politicians and, would probably say that kind of challenging investigative reporting is important, but might not always get the same number of attention, a number of clicks.
Where should people might hear this and think, yeah, great, there should be a local newspaper in every town and every borough, whatever. But where should the money for that come from if it's not going to be coming from advertising in the same way as it used to? Should the government maybe be subsidising local news? What do you think?
Well, I suppose in a way the government probably feels that it is subsidising local news by insisting that all public notices are put in local papers in print, which obviously is quite an important revenue stream for a lot of them. In the end, people got to decide whether do you want to how important is it that I can say it. It's local news is important. I've been doing it for 22 years, but out there, do the public feel it's important? And that's why we've ended up setting up our Substack, which not everyone who signs up or who reads a journal every week is going to be able to afford even £5 a month or £6 a month. But enough people hopefully will be out there to protect that and see the importance of it. Because what's happened is everyone gave everything away. When the internet started, they said, okay, and ours has always been free, but people who used to charge for their newspapers immediately said, oh, here's the internet, we're going to put everything that we've asked you to pay for each day on a print newspaper, and we're going to put it all available online for free. And then they were kind of almost confused about why print sales went down and people's kind of where they consume news changed. So it's hard to kind of get the cat back in the bag, but you're going to have to say to people that this is important. if you can afford to pay, not too much, not excessively, not to pay for someone's £500,000 a year salary if you're on the national news, one of the national newspaper editors get, but just a reasonable cost of having good journalism in your area. Are you willing to pay £3 or £4 or £5, £6 a month? And hopefully there'll be enough people who will. And it doesn't have to be people, but it can be companies and organisations who believe in it. I think there's kind of interesting grant schemes to sponsor journalism in different areas. So, yeah.
And that keeps it independent as well, because then, like you said, there's no
I think
one
people have to
major
have a
shareholder.
reasonable expectation, because Camden Council, for instance, advertises with the Journal. They got their market research, which shows that one in every 2 people in the borough read our paper. They know its importance and its reach. But they don't think, because I've taken, because we've taken advertising out with important information for local people, this paper is going to be easy on us. That would have completely remove the point of why we're here. But the point of we're here is not just to attack Camden Council, but it is to question and challenge what they're doing, because their decisions every day have such an important part of everybody's lives. So it's not like, if you buy an advert, or even if you make a donation, you could make a donation on our Substack, so sign up. But if you're doing something, awful in the borough, we're going to still write about you. And I think people have to have that expectation.
Do you think also having the paper, I mean, I guess the answer is just yes, but does it just, or maybe more, put it better, is that without it, you're sort of more alienated from your community? Do you think that is fair to say? Or does it create a sense of the community that still exists in a time where, a lot of people might not feel it's as tightly knit as it once was?
Well, I think if you're doing it right, definitely. I mean, we've if you look at kind of what we do, you might say it's old-fashioned, I guess, but we're kind of there taking pictures of people who've had a baby on Christmas Day, and then we're there taking pictures when you get your GCSE results. And then just in the Islington Tribune this week, we had a chat with someone who's 102. So it's kind of full life in the paper, and I think that does add to that kind of sense of community. We kind of had maybe we can't always match this ambition now, but the ambition would be you'd always be in the Camden New Journal at some stage during your school life, whether it was your GCSE results or would come in and take a picture of the nativity play or your sports team or something. And so a lot of people will come up to you and say, oh yes, I've got this clipping from 1997 where I won the art competition at Camden School for Girls and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And that I think there's still a role for that, which doesn't really, sharing pictures on Facebook, on the internet and saying, look, my kid's done well is nice. You'll get your friends to politely say, oh, well done, yes, their picture is lovely. But there's something different about being in the local paper, I think, and there is that kind of community. We still have a huge amount of letters that come in, but it's not the only thing. It's not the only thing, but I think it's still an important part. More importantly, I think it's an important part of democracy. Camden Council, like I said, or the councillors in Islington as well, they know they can't just do what they want and not be questioned. Now, that's even more important in local authorities where there's quite huge majorities towards one party, which in Camden Islington's Labour, but in other parts of the country, it might be a different party. But those kind of debates the debates about what should and shouldn't happen don't really happen in council meetings. People say, you've got to have the council meetings are so important, you must cover them, every single word. But they're all stage managed by the ruling party. And really what we do, I think we do it well, have done it well, is kind of work out what's going on behind the scenes, around the edges, and really tell people how decisions are being made, because they're not all being made in public, and trying to get that debate happening so it's not shielded from public view.
What are some of the moments and stories from the last 22 years that you're most proud of? Whether you wrote them or someone else.
Oh, yours, Daisy. Daisy.
Boy wins poetry competition.
She's got a big investigation into gambling shops, the spread of gambling shops, and maybe a fight back against them in the Substack this weekend. So watch out for that.
Watch this space.
Yeah. I think the Whittington I mentioned earlier was was it was, when you talk about community, that was, both, it serves both Camden and Islington, so we had both papers working on it. And it just seemed crazy that they were going to close this emergency ward down, right? Sending people over to Homerton or Hampstead to the Royal Free. And it might sound, it's emotive, but it's been proven right that should have been there. That shouldn't be closed down.
When was that happening?
Well, it happened twice. It was in the what would you call it, the 2000s, and
noughties.
the noughties. Do we do? Okay. And what's the next one? Tweenies, is it?
Yeah, I don't know, actually, the tens.
Anyway, the tens. Well, it happened twice, and both times we had this, like I say, we had this bus leading this kind of trail of people up the Holloway Road and a big rally outside the hospital. And they did change their minds. There was just too much. It was impossible for people not to know that their accident emergency department was and everyone had been there. Everyone, unfortunately, most of us at some stage, whether you've fallen off a Lime scooter or a bike, like I did, that's how silly I can be. But everyone's been there, so it just really brought people together in that campaign, and it's not the only one. We've done, we fought for a London living wage for the school dinner workers in our schools, who were basically serving up the lunches, and then going home and having no food to give their own children because they weren't getting paid enough. And they were always told, we'll wait to the end of the contract and then we'll review it. We said that's not good enough. And so we had marched. We actually door knocked the home address, the mansion of the person who owned the company that was serving up the school dinners, and said, "What's going on? You've got a lovely house. our catering staff don't. They're not even getting a London living wage. They cannot afford to live in the borough next to the school where they're serving the food." And it brought forward a pay rise for them and a big victory. So that's a couple of examples, but
But it just goes to show that stuff like that is happening all around the country all the time. And like you said, if we're there to challenge and hold to account the local councils or whoever it is, but if they know that there's no one watching, I guess it's easier for these kind of miscarriages of justice, or whatever you want to call them, to go to carry on and affect people's lives. And
but you wouldn't have the Houses of Parliament and national politicians operating with nobody writing or checking what they're doing, would you? So why would you want that on a local level? Why wouldn't you want? You have to have people checking. And now it doesn't have to be us. No, we take a terrible turn in the different people work at our paper and they change your direction. We haven't got a birthright to be the local newspaper in our area. But there should be something there. At the moment, I think we're the best ones to do it, but there should be something there. We have to prove that each week.
Yeah. There's also, you sort of touched on this earlier, but at the moment, especially in London, there are a lot of kind of new newspapers or email newsletters coming through.
Yeah.
People who are saying, we need this local accountability. There isn't proper local news in London and there needs to be. Obviously, we have been doing that the whole time. But do you think is it helpful for us as well to have more of those people coming through, because then at least it's
not about whether it's helpful for us. Any competition is, isn't it? Is someone, are they going to come on our patch? But in general, for London, it's a good thing. And more good investigative journalists are on the ground doing the job. There's parts of London which don't really have a local newspaper at all. And from the ones I've seen, the journalists that are taking this on are serious about what they're doing. They're not just creating a kind of a website for a laugh. They're really putting important issues at the top of their agenda. So I think it's a good thing. More the merrier, as long as you stay out of Camden, though. But there are there's places in London which really are not covered at all. Now, if everybody starts up a new newspaper or a new Substack or a new newsletter, but only covers the pedestrianisation of Oxford Street, that not great. But if we could get into kind of different corners of London, which is underrepresented, and that's usually the poor areas, because that's where advertising dropped off the quickest. That would be great. I think you should come back to your request for a pay rise. Because
I didn't make the request. You mentioned it, but sure, tell me more.
Well, it's important, isn't it? Important because we talk about the problems of local journalism. A massive problem, huge problem in London local journalism is that the people who write the news don't always look like, aren't representative of the people reading or who are in the news. And that is a problem at our place. You go into our newsroom and you'll think, well, this is a strange place. This is a village outside. This is a village in Surrey, is it? And we're covering Camden, Islington, parts of London, which have got this amazing, diverse...
Isabel's putting her head in her hands.
Why is she putting her head in her hands? We all think this, but what's to be done about it? And the problem is that it is a low wage job at the start of your career, and a lot of the people that are able to do it are either supported by their family, or they live at home still, even in their 20s, are able to find somewhere in London at somehow a cheap rate. I mean, I think at our place we've all got some sort of thing that has helped us be outside of the job, which has helped us stay for a little bit longer, or it's not easy. It's not easy. So if you're going to have, journalism is an attractive career, people want to do it, but you have to have some sort of backing or support, it seems, at the start of your career. So I think when you're talking about what could the government do, what could be help, is like, hey, let's make journalism more diverse, and let's have better, maybe some grants, go out to the colleges and the universities or in schools at a young age. I just don't think that people even think that in our schools, I'm going to go and be a particularly local journalist, but even a journalist, because they don't always see themselves on TV. If you speak to some of our, counsellors from BAME backgrounds, they would say, well, where are they all? And I would say, well, none of them are applying, and we need help. And they need a good wage early on, and that makes it difficult.
I remembered my other question.
What's the other question, Daisy?
It was, how now, I would say that obviously a lot of people read our papers.
Yeah.
A lot of people read physical papers.
Yeah.
But probably as a generic statement, it's older people who read the physical papers and younger people get a lot of their news online, right?
Look at us here.
What do you mean?
Things are changing, Daisy. Who would have thought we'd be in a podcast studio like this?
I know. But I think the
Well,
paper...
She's younger. You're 20 years younger than me.
But I think that having a paper is... Obviously, that's our bread and butter, even though we're here and we do other bits and bobs. Like, that's always what the Camden New Journal has been. I often think, how nowadays vinyl is back and everyone's got their like little record player and whatever, or people go to the cinema to watch kind of old style crackly films. Do you think that there could be a resurgence for the younger generations of people reading newspapers because they in some ways might feel so alienated from their communities by only engaging with the world through their phones and seeing, you know what's happening on the other side of the world, but you've no idea what's happening two streets down.
I think that's part of a kind of, maybe not a huge trend, but there's definitely a kind of switch off trend. People are kind of working out in different degrees that they're distracted by their phones all the time, flicking through TikTok, for an hour and then they're not realising an hour has passed. And so there has been that kind of reach for, like you say, maybe a vinyl record or maybe even more long-form journalism, those kind of things that people would actually saying, hang on a minute, what am I doing all day? Just a constant stream of 2-second clips. I think that kind of part of the rise of those Substacks and newsletters have actually shown that there is interest in longer, more interesting, as long as it's well done and well written and engaging, that it's there. But I think the thing about the paper, our papers and what local papers can be is that they've got an advantage over the national newspapers in the fact that national newspapers have to basically tell you something that happened today, which you've already read online or you've seen on the news at 10 the night before. Not that much different that you learn the next day, unfortunately, in national newspapers from what's been on TV or the radio. And so you can see why circulations have fallen. With a local newspaper, you know it's going to be about your area, but you're not quite sure what's going to be in there because we don't push everything as immediately to the... You're coughing in the middle of my important point. Is there not a cough button? No, don't touch it. They said don't touch it. The difference with a local paper is that when you pick it up on a Thursday or Friday, whenever it comes out, is that you haven't read everything or seen it all on the TV and the radio the night before or even the morning before. So you know it's going to be about your area, so it's going to be something that affects you. A lot of the stuff in a national newspaper probably doesn't affect you. But you know the stuff that in this particular paper is going to affect you, and you haven't read it all before on the internet or seen it on the TV on the news at 10 before. So, you know, there is a place, there is still a market for local papers, but just need a bit of help.
Okay, great. Well, I think that's all we have time for, Richard.
We do now.
It's been...
We're going to go off and cough on the terrace.
Yeah.
As our first experience in the podcast studio.
How did you find it?
That's very nice.
Yeah.
I think I prefer to ask the questions. I'd like to interview someone.
Is that because I'm not good at asking the questions?
No, it's just nicer to my whole job's been about interviewing people,
yeah.
not being interviewed.
Does it feel weird to be interviewed?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. You were great.
Yeah.
You had a lot of interesting things to say.